Yeah.
So, some introductions, I guess. Lyndon?
Yeah, I'm Lyndon Bridgwater. I'm actually the Texas Senior Lead Robot Inspector. So within all of the Texas division districts, events and what have you, I'm kind of the head robot inspector. From the grand scheme of FIRST, above me is Al Skurkowitz. He's actually the chief robot inspector for all of the events everywhere. So he's my boss, so to speak. And Chuck is kind of his deputy at this point. So I guess technically I call up to him now, even though I taught him the first time.
You've been doing this, what, 20
I've been
years?
doing inspecting for 20 years. I was a student in 1998, so this is like the 22nd year of FIRST, something like that.
Were you a student on a team?
No,
I was
that's
on
not
Team
right.
57 when it started.
Oh.
And then switched over to 118 while I was in college and starting work at NASA. Then when I was at JPL, I mentored 696 and some 4000 series team. I don't remember who they were.
One of them.
It was a blur living out there, so there's that. Let's see, I've been a robot inspector for the Dallas event, the New Orleans event, Houston, always, Los Angeles, Champs several years. I've also been a referee for Champs and for districts at this point. Yeah, wear of many hats.
You do whatever you want.
Nah, I don't do whatever I want. That would be bad.
Yeah. So,
we ready to start? We are.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Why don't you guys? I mean, she's got us off. Yeah.
So,
That's exactly what we're doing.
those of you that don't-
You're here.
Oh, I was in the presentation?
Yeah,
Sorry.
we're rolling. Okay. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Chuck Dickerson. I'm the lead mentor for FRC Team 456 out of Vicksburg, Mississippi. I've been inspecting for half the time that Lyndon has, about 10 years now. And I'm the LRI for Bayou. I've also done a lot of inspecting at lots of other dips. I've been a division lead at Champs for at least 8 years now or something. I don't know. It's been a long time. As Lyndon said, I've been the assistant chief robot inspector for a couple of years now. It's not common knowledge.
Yeah.
Lyndon didn't know, but they asked me to step up. Al's trying to kind of scale back, and as FIRST grows, we're trying to divide this up. So, like Lyndon said, I've kind of been the assistant chief robot inspector. Now Al and I are chief robot inspectors. Moving forward, Al will probably take Detroit and the team geographic areas that go to Detroit. I'll probably take Houston and all the teams that would go here and divide up the world that sort of way. We back each other up, etc. So both Lyndon and I have lots of robot inspecting experience, lead robot inspecting experience. Been doing this quite a long time. And as Lyndon already pointed out, we think it's the most fun you can have working at FIRST at an event while not actually working on the robot. Trying to get a feel for the room. We're not real sure exactly where you guys want to go on this presentation. We don't have a canned presentation for this. The premise of it was mostly to be trying to encourage folks to volunteer because there's definitely a shortage of robot inspectors in Texas. We're going district and at Houston Champs, so we need all the help we can get. So we're happy to discuss that, tell you the pros and cons, basically mostly all the pros. Well, I'm concerned.
All the joys of it. Yeah.
But we're really, open to any questions you guys have, sharing our experiences with you. If you're more interested in, how it can help you from a team perspective, what do you guys want us to talk about? And we'll just kind of steer it that way. So, we don't want to all watch me talk about slides. I got some really cool pictures of stuff we see, and we can, laugh about that stuff. So fill the room. Are y'all wanting to be RIs, locally, or are you just trying to learn the process of inspection, how we can?
Yeah, actually everything about it. The first thing was when I read on the website that they need RIs for Texas,
Right.
as you're going district now.
Okay.
And I always wanted to volunteer in FRC, but still I could not figure out where I want to be.
Perfect.
So that's
That's what we're looking
Awesome.
for right there.
Yeah.
Excellent. How about you guys?
Same mantra?
Know
more or
the
less?
process, learn it.
Learn the process of
Okay.
inspection from a team perspective and how we can, help you get through that a little bit easier kind of thing, or from a volunteer standpoint?
You are
Volunteers.
Both, okay. Huh?
Same here, to help my team and
Excellent.
to be able to volunteer.
Excellent. So the first thing I would say is, it sounds like you guys have team experience. You're obviously mentors, been working on teams, that kind of stuff. Those are the volunteers we need being robot inspectors. We can go out and tap industry. We can get technical professionals, people that know all about pneumatics or all about the electrical systems or whatever. But they're not coming from a first background from the team's perspective. They oftentimes don't know how to interact with students. It's not that they're not technically proficient, but there's sort of this responsibility beyond just checking the rules and making sure that the robot and the team is following the letter of the rule. And it's more about how do we make the team safe and get them on the field. Our mission as robot inspectors and LRIs is basically a couple of things. Make sure that the team doesn't have an unfair competitive advantage, that they're following the rules, but there's always some gray areas or some issues that we have to work with that we just didn't foresee. The rules can't cover everything. The other thing is we want to make sure teams are safe. That's the bottom line. Whatever, even if it's within the rules and it's something that wasn't covered in the rules, if somebody's going to get hurt on it, it's a no-go. So we have the blanket, usually R7, I think, or R9, something like that, is our catch-all, this isn't safe. It's our professional opinion that we shouldn't let this go. And that can sometimes become a sticky point because sometimes teams don't agree that that's our assessment of it. And the third thing that's most important of our to-do list is to do everything in our power to make sure every team gets the help they need and makes their matches, gets on the field. Because this is a high-dollar thing. We want positive experience for the teams. The last thing an inspector or an LRI wants is a team having to rebuild their robot, sitting in their pit, having a bad day, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we're one of the weird volunteers within FIRST in that we both represent the FIRST game design committee, but we are also a member of the team, so to speak.
Right.
So one of our one of the group mantras is that every team makes their match.
Right.
And we can't let them do that safely, but the intent behind it is that when we walk into the pit, we're working with the team, the intent is to get them on the field.
Right.
So we, from headquarters down, we are told to consider ourselves a part of each team when we walk into those pits.
We want teams to feel like we're not the robot police, that when we walk in their pit, consider us another mentor on your team, and that we're there to help. And that's part of, particularly LRI's job, but the RI's to work with the LRI, is to connect resources. That's why we like to have inspection teams that are familiar with all the teams and know, like for my event, if I got a team that's struggling with their code and they're a LabVIEW team, these are my LabVIEW guru teams, or these are my C++ guru teams, or they need some mechanical help, I can go to Spectrum and they're going to throw 6 kids in their pit and help them build stuff. It's our job as the robot inspection team to be the front lines in the pits to help the teams get to where they need to be so they can be rules compliant within the intent of the rules, get on the field, and do it safely. That's pretty much the bottom line. You guys want to add or cover on that one?
No, that was great.
All right, so let's scroll along. Obviously, GP at all times, as a robot inspector, one of the things Al will always say is, if you walk in at a team, clearly has an issue that needs to be resolved, you are essentially telling a group of students and potentially mentors, your baby's ugly and you dress them funny. And you don't want to be harsh about it. There has to be a diplomatic way of working with the teams to resolve that issue and come to a amenable solution. You have to be very patient. Sometimes I never have ever had a problem with students, ever. I always have, any issues that we have is with a mentor. And it's the same thing. They're responsible for this team, they're responsible for the kids, and when you tell them, well, you're kind of 6 inches outside your frame perimeter.
Your last 6 weeks have been
Yeah, how are we going to do this? And Lyndon and I, and every inspector and LRI can tell y'all endless stories, literally for days, of the things we've seen. And we'll show y'all some pictures here in a little bit. Teams that, I had a team that came in at one of my events when the frame perimeter was, I think, 112 inches a few years ago, measured up. And they walked through the door, and it was load in, and I'm watching the robot go through in his bag. I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, why are they putting their cart in the bag? This robot was literally so large, like a go-kart. You could ride it. It had 10-inch Buchanan wheels, and it was about 6 foot long and 3 foot wide. And so I kind of followed back to the pit. I'm looking at it, and they weren't a rookie team, but they were a couple years old. And I'm like, I don't know, I got the tape measure on it, but I think you may have a frame perimeter issue here, and you need to be thinking about, tonight, how you're going to get this back into the 112-inch frame perimeter restriction, and et cetera, so that in the morning, when we take it out of the bag, it's not going to be an issue. And the mentor's standing there looking at me, he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, your robot's too big. And he's like, what do you mean? There's a size limit? Where's that in the rules? I'm like, R1. and he was literally like, but he had inherited this team. The previous mentor that had started it, that was left, they've been there a couple of years, they didn't know it. He didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know anything about the rules. Just kind of got dropped in his lap. So, I have to tell him, his baby's ugly and he dressed it funny right there. But you have to do this in a very tactful way and, work with them to get the plan. And so I had to convey to him, in the morning when pits open at 8 o'clock, we're going to take this out of the bag. I'm going to have 20 people standing around here from all different colored shirts, and they're going to help you and your team get through this process tomorrow. And it's going to be very painful. And they're going to take the robot and they're going to cut it in half, and we're going to get this shrunk down. And, but don't worry about it. Once we get to the practice day, we will have you on the field. And sure enough, of course, we did. That's how this, you've all been around this. That's how that works. But my point is, you have to have a certain personality to be a robot inspector that's a people person. You have to not walk in like, I'm the robot police and that's wrong and you got to get it fixed. Come back and find me in a couple hours when you got it done. You have to be tactful and have that personality that works with teams. So, you guys are those kind of people and you have team experience. We're the kind of folks we're looking for.
There's also an aspect of understanding the team's own abilities and their drive to actually do the work. Mm-hmm. One of the things that comes into play a lot of the time when you have a team that's not, some rule is out of spec. They're trying to fix that problem. There are a lot of times where a team, the students themselves are very capable of what they're doing. They just lost that one. They just lost track of it. And so you can talk to them about it, and if it's a poker game. You're trying to read them, understand whether or not they know what you're talking about when you're talking to them. If they do, they repeat what you ask them to do, off to the races they go. Great. Additionally, you can talk to them and they're just completely blank. They don't know what's going on. One of the things that, backing up a bit, we're asked to work with the students directly. So we try our best not to talk with the mentors. You guys are great, except that this is a student team thing. We're trying to make sure that the students are able to take care of these works. A lot of times that's not necessarily the case. So it's trying to find out how capable they are of actually achieving what they need to do, and then finding teams. And it's not just finding a team that's exceptionally good at doing some work and having them just pounce, kick all the other students out and take care of it. That does not win favor for anybody, especially the rookie teams.
And that's not inspiration. And that's
A lot of the times it really just
bottom line.
like they'll get through the year, probably won't see them next year. So there's two sides of the coin of not just getting them onto the field, it's also making sure that, hey, they actually want to continue being there and doing it again. So it's a soft balance to try and make sure that when we as mentors of what have you grab another team and say, hey, these people, they're going to help you out. They're helping you, not doing the work for you.
Correct.
And so it's a trick to make sure that they understand that they still have ownership of that robot, even though it may now look totally different from what they just brought in. That because everything got pulled apart and got put back together, that all these other shirts touched it, it's still theirs. And that's important to make sure of. When the event is over, you want to make sure that they want that robot back.
Right. And that's, I think it was the very last bullet on the last slide, talking about rookie teams. You don't have to go back to it, but that was the point, exact point I meant to make when that came up. It's much more challenging to have that interaction, that conversation with rookie teams, and it's important to remember that a rookie team does not necessarily mean the highest number of teams at the event. There's a lot of teams that have lower number of teams that are straight up rookie teams. Every year there's student turnover. There may be one or two students that have done this once before or something like that. But
Totally brand new mentor.
Right, new mentor, rookie mentors. You might have kids that have done this for 3 years, but their teacher left or whatever. That is a very difficult challenge to read your team and not jump to the conclusion because they're a 3,000 number team that they should know what they're doing. And a lot of times they're the new students, particularly, and new teachers, new mentors that have never been through. They don't walk in the door, deer in the headlights, don't have that perspective of years of doing this, are very reluctant most of the time because they're coming from a society and a model where it's us against them. It's my football team doesn't share our playbook with you. This concept of cooperation and gracious professionalism is very difficult to grasp for some of these teams that are just starting. And one of the biggest challenges that LRI has is when one of these rookie teams comes in and there's a teacher and we're like, please let us help you. Please let us, there's people lined up, they want to do this. And back to the problem is always with the adults, the mentors. There's always that mentor, no, I'm going to make my kids do it like it's some kind of punishment. They screwed up, we don't want your help, that kind of stuff. I'm sure you've seen that time and time again. And at some point in time, you have to get a little more forceful. Sometimes you have to pull that mentor aside and take them out to the loading dock or whatever and say, hey, let's
Take them around back.
we take them around back and say, that's not how this works. You're not inspiring your kids. You're turning them off. You're punishing them. They don't want to come back next year when they're a rookie team and they're having a terrible experience. And it's let's inspire them. Let's let these other teams jump in there and work with them. And what you'll find a lot of times is students, high school students, junior high, whatever age they are, oftentimes respond better to what we call near peer. That they glaze over, they tune out those adults. They're telling them, go do this like it's an assignment. But when someone their own age, or maybe, that senior is helping that junior, both on the team, but, inter-team dynamic set of competition, comes in and says, hey, let me help you work on that, gearbox or whatever. They will bond and relate to each other, can communicate in a way that, adults, us in a yellow hat and black vest, feels threatening. So that's our main job as inspectors, is to go through the checklist, yes, but to be those front lines in the pits to help these teams. So we'll move along.
One of the very coolest things about, one of the reasons why I started actually, you get to look at every single team.
And they come to you.
I jokingly say that I started out as an inspector so that I could spy on all the teams. So
I'll straight up tell you that.
back when I started, it was competitive, so there was no competition sort of thing. So everybody, you were the team on the field, and it was you versus 2 or 3 other teams at the same time. So it was actually like teams would literally box their robots up. You couldn't see inside them. So as the inspector, I was just like, hey, I get to look everywhere, and I get to put my face right inside of it, actually get them to tell me how it works. So to that end, though, it's now more of a, hey, I get to look at it and see all these great ideas. And like one of the things that helps, especially the rookie teams, is when we find something that's really kind of cool and novel, making sure that they realize that, oh, hey, they've actually done something cool. One of the more fun things I've had to do is actually point out something that was very, very cool, except very, very illegal.
Very innovative.
You've got
cool.
something that is just fantastic, except I can't let you use it. It is one of the more humorous conversations to have as an inspector, without question.
Absolutely. So, yes, second on that. So, Lyndon's already said, we always try and inspect with students present. You know, one of the things that helps your inspector and helps us help your team is prepare them to stand on their own 2 feet. As a mentor, be ready when you go to competition. Your job as mentors is to get them ready for that competition before you get there. It's my philosophy. Once they walk in the door, step out of that pit, step out of line, let them do their job. When those judges, those inspectors come in, just kind of recuse yourself and let them do what you prepared them to do. That's what, inspectors want to see. All too often there's a lot of mentors that just won't shut up. And we're like, please let me talk to this student over here. Who's your electrical person or your pneumatics person? I need to talk to them. As inspectors, always praise the teams. Always point out the really cool things like Lyndon's saying. Maybe something that's super cool, super innovative, and now you got to point out and say, I love this, can't let you do it, but it's a great idea. And sometimes you're going to find stuff that is not quite right and it's going to be difficult to point out. But let them know that our job is that we want them to get to the field, and we're trying to help them do whatever needs to be done so that they're in eliminations. So moving on. Y'all stop us at any time and we'll rattle on forever.
We'll get to the funnier stuff shortly.
Yeah. Be sure to gather students around, make sure that everybody understands, is what Lyndon was talking about. Sometimes there's miscommunication.
And a big part of that is also language.
Right.
So not so often at district or regionals, definitely at champs. Teams are from different countries. Sometimes there is one student that might speak English in my case. So having inspectors actually have multiple languages is fantastic, but ideally the team has somebody that can help you out there. But it is very, especially for those, but also when, as a 20-year veteran kind of thing, when I'm talking to a team, I may be using language that, though is English, is something they don't understand because it is colloquials, it's nomenclature that we use that they haven't heard before. So it's very important to make sure that they can parrot back what you just told them to do and that they understand what it is that you told them to do. I try to make sure that before I leave the pit, after I've told them, like, hey, you need to, for example, rewire something. Like, have them regurgitate it back to me. And if they say exactly what I told them back, I'll say it again. Try a different way of saying it. That way to make sure that they are like cognitively processing on what was actually just asked of them.
That point you just made, the champs wire issue in parentheses, every inspector I know has had this problem at some point in time. You're inspecting the robot, they've got a 40 amp breaker on an 18 gauge wire, and it's a magic smoke issue kind of thing. It's simple to fix. We just say, change this wire. Okay, yeah, we'll go ahead, we'll change that wire. Got it, no problem. And then it's like, come get me in 30 minutes when you're done, we'll give you your sticker. And an hour goes by, you hadn't seen it, you go back, robot's completely apart, and they're rewiring the entire robot because some student thought you meant you had to rewire the entire robot. And it's like, no, I just meant this wire. That's what Lyndon's talking about, is we've all had that happen And it breaks our heart every time. We're like, this is a problem. Conversely, I had a team at Champs one time who thought, their team colors were like yellow and green or something, I don't remember, and they had their entire robot wired with illegal color wires. We're trying to convey wiring standards and wiring color standards. That's why there's colors on there. So I'm like, beautiful wiring job, nice and neat. Didn't use the appropriate colors. It has to be the ones listed in the rules. So, okay. They told us that at the regional. They said get it fixed before the next one. They passed the buck. Now it's Champs. Now it's my problem, right? So I went to the hardware store, came back, got wire, but they got blue and white or something like that, which were legal on the thing. But then they rewired their entire robot backwards and put the white where the blue was and blue where the white should have been. And I come back to them and said, okay, that's fine. And they were like going to be smart butts about it. And, like, we'll show you, we can do this other color. And it doesn't have to be red and black. And it doesn't have to be red and black. But it does have to be white on, power and blue on negative or whatever. And they did it backwards. So I'm like, great, now flip all your wires around. So, there's a two-way street there. You have to sort them out. Anything on them? We beat them, make sure they make their matches to death, use our experience as experienced mentors to help the teams as much as possible, check back periodically to make sure that they're making progress on what you're doing and don't have that robot ripped apart.
Yeah.
Basically, that's all I do.
Yeah, and I'll just come back to this, or I'll start on this one real quick. Events. The actual event itself is multiple days long. As the inspectors, now with districts, load-in day is very chaotic, very hectic for inspection. The first morning of the first day is also very hectic for us, trying to wrap up all the teams that haven't been inspected yet either. For most events, that plays out basically the exact same way, where you'll have a couple of days where it's just an amazing amount of chaos. As the LRI, I'm sad that I'm no longer inspecting robots as much as I normally do. Most of my job is managing that chaos. One, making sure that my inspectors are all understanding what the rules are and working with the teams, and also making sure that the teams are actually processing and going off stuff. We have some inspection sheets and some data keeping that we're doing for the most part. But outside of those first couple of days, then it becomes really slow. Arguably, someone could call dull. But really, at that point, is actually the part that I actually enjoy a lot. I'm wandering the pits, I'm talking to the teams, I'm watching them do repair work, just periodically
Taking pictures of the coolest things.
Yeah, and it's like, it's really kind of like just, you've got this massive cathartic thing at the beginning, and then all of a sudden it's like super smooth and calm. And then comes finals, which is a quick little mad dash, and then it's just watching matches. And it's just a great big amount of fun. There are two types of people that are watching for safety things. There's the safety advisors and then the robot inspectors. When it comes to the finals, people can get very chaotic. They're not thinking all of the time. It's like the reptilian brain running, so they're just like fast, gotta go. So it's really quick for them to make a mistake, hurt themselves. So we are an extra set of eyes to make sure that that's going on too.
To add on to what Lyndon was saying, I guess you're getting the memo. It's cool to be a robot inspector because you get to spy on all the robots and see all the cool stuff. But what you'll find is that, particularly now that Texas has gone district, you're going to start seeing the same robots over and over, year to year, same teams. So all of us have our home event. The beauty you guys have being, if you're here, you close to Houston for the champs, is you're going to have 400 robots of the best robots, the coolest robots coming from all over the world. So you get to spy on what's happening outside of Texas. And that's what's cool to me about it, is it adds different flavor to my knowledge base. So it's in the same friends over and over. What else you got? What's next?
To that end, we get to now show you all the funny stuff that
Sure.
we have seen throughout the years. This is a non-complete set.
Yes, this is
Fair
it's not
enough.
all inclusive.
So there is 30 or college student as robot
Yeah.
inspector. Within Texas, I do work with college students as robot inspectors, mostly as much because I need them, and they are good.
There are published age limits, age restrictions on different positions, whether CSA or whatever. Those are not, despite what anybody's going to tell you, an absolute rigid, hard and fast.
There's always exceptions.
There's always exceptions. If I've got that, college student that I know is top notch, CSA quality material, programmer extraordinaire in all languages, has been on the team for 4 years, etc. It sounds like you're this exact example. Okay,
there's
same
two-
thing. Robot
yeah.
inspectors, same thing.
There's two halves of it though, is to make sure, like, with the age limit is there, or the age requirement is there from an ideal of age comes maturity.
Right.
As we've kind of been going through, there's a lot of interaction with people, and it doesn't take much to make that interaction become problematic.
Right.
So ensuring that the person is mature enough to have that conversation, that goes for somebody who is 19 as it is somebody who's 50.
Right.
So I've had robot inspectors that I'm like, I would really rather you not do one anymore, because their interaction with teams is more hostile, and it's not useful for conveying them, the teams getting through what we're trying to do. So, like, it's a maturity thing as much as it is anything else. So technically capable, mature in what they're doing, and then they need to have a presence. If somebody is just like this shadow high on the wall, they're unwilling to talk with teams. Like you say, hey, I need you to go talk with them and take care of this problem, and they're just like very sheepish.
They have to be
That
assertive.
really doesn't play well. It can help blossom people. Some people can like all of a sudden get very big in themselves, and that's great. But if they stay closed in, and doesn't work, generally speaking.
And it's also, the flip side of that is, if I've got, this mentor that says, well, I've been, doing this for, 15 years, and I know what I'm doing, and you're this young kid, and you don't know what you're doing, and just gets in their face, starts screaming that whole umpire on the baseball field, it's unfair to the 18-year-old kid to have to be put in that sort of position. So, like Lyndon said, they have to have a presence and somewhat of authority to things.
But to that end, you also have, as an inspector, me behind you,
Right.
so to speak, or Chuck behind you.
That's why we wear the black vest. They're bulletproof, believe it or not.
Knife proof at the very least, right?
Maybe.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
This is good.
We'll show you some funny stuff. So, hazardous materials, exposed lead. This was a picture I took in Florida. A lot of dive shops around. He needed to weight the robot. They literally went down the street, rented some dive weights, came back, zip tied them on the robot. The center one here in the blue, I perfectly legal allowed because it's encased in plastic. The two on the outside, exposed lead. If this had been in California, we'd have had to call in the hazmat guys and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it'd like been a big deal. So I'm trying to explain to the team at the time, we can't have this. Please cut the zip size, take it out. I want a mentor to do it, put gloves on. I want kids touching it. And this kid's going, I don't understand what's wrong with it. I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, can you please remove your hand from your mouth now that you just touched the lead bar, and that's why you can't have it. So that was a fun one. This wasn't mine. This was, I think Ed Sparks or Jeff, one of those. I think it was Atlanta.
Are those
Little
like
fall back.
ball bearings?
Yes.
That is
Steel shot, shotgun shot in a glass jar.
Which,
That-
this steel shot in its own right, arguably, I would have hesitation with.
Yeah.
Right.
The fact that they put it in ballast on a glass jar,
They wanted to tape it on their
on a
robot.
robot,
Let's think this through.
It was as is on a robot?
that was their ballast.
That was their balance. Beyond, even if it was not lead, not in a glass jar,
Yeah.
even if it was steel shot, it's a bad idea. There's no rule that says thou can't have steel on your robot, right?
Yeah.
It's impossible for us to cover every possibility. But one year some team had a bunch of BBs, steel BBs or
I think
brass,
they had it
whatever,
in PVC pipes.
in a PVC pipe. Of course, the pipe broke, the BBs spilled all over the field. It was like this couple of hour delay out there picking up BBs on the field because they don't suck up with a vacuum.
Oh, God.
You know, I mean,
Marbles on the
exactly. It's like
Yeah.
some aspects of this require common sense. All right, what's next?
Common sense. All
Yeah,
legal parts,
What?
yeah.
but
What's going on here?
it's not attached.
Those are
Yeah.
chain.
They wanted a sim motor
Yeah.
for ballast. It's perfectly legal. Nothing says you have to have the motor powered and turned on and driving a gearbox or whatever.
But no.
But you can't just tape it down on there and expect it to stay there. So, and of course, yeah, the wiring, we'll get to that in a minute, is a total disaster. That's one of those opportunities to assist the team and say, let's talk about some wire management here. Same thing, trailer hitch ball over here. Trailer hitch ball, you'll see a lot of these ballast pictures because we laugh and we take lots of pictures of them because it's like who can outdo the other, who can outdo the because teams, you know, this right here typically happens at lunch on Saturday. Because, you know, it's that team that's mechanism is now dead. They need to play defense Saturday afternoon in
Double
eliminations.
batteries.
How do I run back to the scale? Double batteries, yeah. You heard that story, right? And put 124.9 pounds on here. Let's go out to the truck, steal the trailer hitch ball. Wait a minute, somebody's got a splitting maul wedge in their thing. And, you know, they're zip tying it on in a hurry. No rule says you can't put a trailer hitch ball on the robot for weight. I don't want it flying off, so we're going to at least clamp it down or put some nuts and bolts in things.
Yeah, the next one's my favorite.
Which one? What's next? Oh, same
Oh my
thing.
God.
This was mine. My event.
Oh my God.
That's literally a chunk of concrete from the curb in the parking lot. It was crawling with ants.
On the
See?
robot.
On the robot. With a little, whatever you call the pipe strap stuff, right next to their radio. I'm walking by, I'm like, what are you doing? And there's like
Secured the other way.
mentor hands. He's like, we got to get weight on this because they kept flipping over backwards. I'm like, yes, but let's find a better way here. Let's go get some weight. He says, he's like, there's no rule that says I can't put this on my robot.
But no.
Yes, but A, you can only have, at that time, 4 team members on the field, and I can't make the button small enough for all the little ants crawling around with your robot. B, I'm going to call it a prefabricated part outside of your build limit because you took it from the curb, and I know the parking lot's been there for like 20 years. And C, this is just a dumb idea. You know, I mean, it's just going to crash your radio.
Yeah.
So let's take it off, go over to a neighbor team, get some 5-pound plate weights that they had, put some nuts and bolts and washers through there, solve this problem. Yeah? This is the kind of stuff you get to do and the fun you get to have as an RI.
I hope you
Yeah, this was one that I had in Orlando a long time ago. So the same thing, they wanted weight. So they took their toolbox, they had a sawzall, and that was the toolbox for like their sawzall. They mounted the sawzall onto these are 2x4 structures up here, put bolts and screws through their toolbox rigidly mounted, and they threw a bunch of chain in there. They came to the inspection station with the robot and a pair of bolt cutters, and they sat there cutting links off until they got it to the under 120 pounds. And then they snapped it closed and ran duct tape around here. Perfectly legal. What's the coolest thing about the picture? Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Yeah, that was great. More plate weights trying to be held on with some baling with some red wire and red electrical tape. Let's put some nuts and bolts in that. This is one of Jeff's right here. Solid chunk.
mechanisms.
Yeah, solid chunk of aluminum held on by the zip tie. They went and had to put a bolt in it underneath there.
It's a thin zip tie, but the zip tie
Like
doesn't
electrical zip tie.
have- Even quote-unquote structural zip ties are not strong enough for what we do with them.
Right.
So, like, one of the rules that I tend to use that usually works pretty quick is have the team, ask them if they're comfortable in taking the robot up from it. Just
Or
grab the zip tie
we'll
structure.
talk about batteries here in a minute. Is your battery secure?
Oh, yeah.
What,
Yes, yes.
the rule said, battery must be securely mounted.
Speaking
Define
of-
securely mounted.
Oh.
Define securely mounted. Well, can I take your robot, turn it upside down, and start shaking it, and the battery not fall out?
Like Dairy Queen, like it.
Yeah, like a blizzard or whatever. I'm gonna blizzard your robot. That's what I'm using now. I'm gonna blizzard your robot. Turn it upside down and shake it. Now, I'm not really gonna take it, turn it upside down and shake it. But if they say no, that's probably not secure. I had a team, this was, I think, the first year I was LRI, so it was 10 years ago, at my event. Team came in, put the battery on there, and tied it with some kite string, literally kite string.
Oh my
Just
God.
put a little loop on there. Says, that's not what I'm going to consider secure. I need you to make it more secure. Okay. So they add more kite string. Coming back like every 10 minutes. Is this enough? Is this enough? I'm like, let's get some Velcro. Let's get some, take your belt off. Let's do something.
More kite string.
And so they just had this big mass of kite string on there. I'm like, okay, fine. And off to the field they went. And sure enough, halfway through the match, bam, battery comes flying out. I watched it, walked back, and I'm standing there at the pit. And here comes the guy pushing the cart, carrying the battery. And I'm saying, we're going to get that battery more secure. He goes, and I quote, I kid you not, he said, but it only came out because they ran into us. That's the point.
That's why we're doing this.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's
So I guess batteries, also besides being securely mounted, this is kind of hard to see, we see a lot of brownout issues.
yeah.
You guys have seen it, you've been on the field, you've had a partner, maybe yourselves, brownout, die, move. We lost to you guys in 2015. Not because we sucked, when you guys were, great, but we moved 3 feet, autonomous, battery bolt fell out, robot never moved, etc.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
We
Part
lost
of-
in 2017 because our partner died. So
Yes.
we understand.
We've all, so part of your job as a robot inspector is not, the rules, but it's like, hey, let's check all your batteries. Let's make sure that things are secure. Let me show you how to put some, lock washers, star washers, torque it properly on your main breaker, on your battery. Let's insulate these, etc. This is not good, and this is,
No better.
yeah, it's not going to last. You're out there, you're not going to move.
Yeah. This is also an opportunity to just I'll fly my flag of ignorance as a rookie. This is also an opportunity as an inspector to kind of double check the process that the teams are doing when they're doing their field work. You can watch how they assemble the robot, get the battery installed, etc., and you can find out that something bad might happen. My rookie year at Champs, during our practice match, thankfully, I was the field person for my team, so I was the one who carried the robot out, got the robot on the field, made sure it was ready to go. In the rush, because they paused us, we had unplugged our robot, and we waited for like 10, 15 minutes because of whatever field problems. When I went back out and plugged it back in, very first thing our robot did that year was deploy its arms out and get ready to go.
Oh, no.
The battery was wrapped through the arm. Because of the rush of getting everything back and running, the robot turned itself off. So it's not just a matter of like, hey, you should probably make sure your batteries are good. Hey, let's redo this, and maybe you want to make sure that you don't do that somehow or another. It's fun stuff. We've also seen some creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Batteries are not to be modified.
Okay,
Yeah, those middle and bottom are exceptionally bad.
Right.
The top one is a big frustration at the very least,
Right.
but is definitely illegal. We need to make sure that what we're looking at is right. This goes for batteries, but even more importantly is the pneumatic systems. Like you guys might be exceptionally frustrated with us saying, hey, we need to make sure we can see everything, so you can't modify the pneumatics. We've got to be able to look at what they are, see that there's no damage to them. Actually, what was it, 3-ish, 4 years ago, where we had the white and green labeled clippers?
Right.
They exploded.
exploding.
This is a manufacturing
Exploding
error.
tanks.
So, like historic, like for years after that, we are still finding.
I still find them this year.
So it's a matter of making sure that we can find the ones that we know that are bad. Not just the fact. Mhm.
Yeah.
The white clipper tanks with the green labels on them.
If you see
had a-
one, if you have one, don't use it. If you're in a match with a partner, have them pull it off, report it to your robot inspector and team.
We'll get them
We
a
will
replacement,
change it
no
out.
So
problem.
the ones that's green.
Yeah, it's white.
It's not all white tanks.
Yeah.
White tanks are fine.
Yeah.
White tanks have green clippered writing on them. They're specifically called out to this day in the robot rules, part number not allowed. It's
We
fine.
had-
My team actually did a
We had
bunch
two or
of
three of them
investigation and
explode.
we tested those and that's why they're illegal.
Yeah, one of them exploded
Action
on the
test.
field, threw shrapnel into the stands.
Wow.
One of them, I think, exploded in a mentor's hand in the pit as they were charging it up and checking things. Fortunes of all things, nobody actually got hurt by that one, other than probably hearing loss.
Yeah.
There was a manufacturing flaw in the tanks. They had some air pocket voids in the fittings.
And the
that
plastic
thing
that they used was too brittle.
Yeah.
The plastic that they use in the black tanks, and white tanks, we're all familiar with now.
How about that?
It's a much softer plastic for taking it back.
The
The one
one
with the
picture.
handle.
The
Yeah,
one
what's
with
the
the handle.
point?
What's up with that?
Oh, yeah, so,
What's going on there?
yeah,
Oh, the one in the
they
middle?
wanted a way to carry
Is
it.
that like a
They
command?
didn't want to have to
Yeah.
carry like normal people, they want to install handles, so they just installed handles.
Yeah.
I've actually seen them drilled through for that.
Oh.
That's epoxy on there, but I've actually seen, teams drill holes in batteries to attach eyeballs or
Oh, my
something to
God.
secure it down, and it's like, no!
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
also,
I have seen a kid going and trying to drill the hole in the battery.
No, no,
What,
can't do
what are you
that.
doing? And just drilling hole, I don't
Right.
that's battery.
yeah. There's also,
Don't.
batteries are surprisingly fragile. I know this year in Texas, we had 3 ruptures of batteries. Spillage in several cases, and in one case.
Just out of curiosity, were they kit apart batteries this year? This year's kit apart?
It was a
I don't believe so.
We've had a lot of reports of those batteries in the kit aparts this year.
Yeah, I don't believe.
Ours didn't even make it home from
There's one
kickoff.
at Channel View.
And
And then
we-
Alan
and
was
then-
like, God damn it. I'm
Mary.
clean.
And at least one student had been spilled on by the battery. So like this is like one of those interesting things that we're starting to try and figure out ways of helping teams not hurt themselves.
Right.
In one case, the battery was mounted upright, middle of the chassis left to right, but all the way forward. The robot ran full speed into the end of the shuttle, the cargo bay, and took off the entire black cap of the battery. Obviously, they shut down, thankfully, as opposed to something else happening. The other cases, the battery just cracks, either due to overcharging, heating, or misuse. They're really not made to be carried except by grabbing them and holding them.
Yeah.
Correct.
If you grab them by the top, by the little, what feels like finger holes,
Or even worse, by the wires, they're not a handle.
they're not actually handles.
Right.
Like, especially the wire lugs, they're not even attached
Right.
to the battery.
Right in here, there's just a little
Yes.
solder tab that goes in there, and when you're supporting 12 pounds of battery from a little solder tab like that, and that potting material that's around there will crack and flex, and you just pull it right out if you try it hard enough. It's just, if you see students carrying a battery by the leads, really bad idea.
Because it can also cause that.
This is one of our worst nightmares. All of these are pictures of, fire, exploding batteries, etc. I got another one here in a minute. Y'all notice, I think the year before last, we mandated that the chargers have to have the alligator clips cut off and Andersons plugged in there on them. Is that the next slide?
Next
Well, go back. It's because of this right here. A picture on the Loudon picture I actually took at my event. And I was getting really frustrated, team trying to jam alligator clips into the Andersons to charge their batteries. They just never were told, cut it off and install an Anderson on there. So that's why it got put in the rules. It was, this picture on the right does not go with the picture on the left. Those 2 alligator clips are actually welded together now. And it was just, the battery's about to explode. I mean, smoke coming out, clearly the connectors all melted and that kind of thing. Because students jamming them in there, you've got welding arc.
The battery
shooting
probably
right out.
looked a lot like that one on the right.
Yes, and by the time I could get to it and cut it off, the battery was looking like this and smoking and getting hot. I get asked all the time, why do we have to use these lead acid batteries in first? They're so heavy, why can't we do lithium batteries? Because I can't have high school students that don't know what they're doing running around with lithium batteries if this is what I've got on
If we
that.
can go 2 to 3 years without this happening to at least somebody,
Right, then we'll start
we may
thinking about
actually
it.
consider it.
Yeah.
Right,
But
Yeah, lithium
How is that
polymers.
it
We
gets
have
nasty
fire.
very quick.
sure.
With the drone battery.
Yeah, you don't want to go there, and I just can't have, if you think about an event with 40, 50, 60 teams times, multiple batteries apiece, you've got multiple hundreds of batteries that, at each event, I'm not going there. So just more things, this kind of goes with electrical.
These are some of the.
These are some of the really funny ones.
Yeah, as we get offered up the rules and we try to work with the teams, we also come up with some ways of helping them out. And we try to talk them into like, you should probably replace those things with something that already helps you out.
Right. So if y'all notice that, go back to that one real quick. Y'all notice anything on the right picture showing in the road circles? Team said they burnt the fuses out of their PD board. They couldn't find the right size fuses. Those are not the fuses that come in that board. Those are the ATM or ATD, whatever it is. the Full-size blade fuses instead of the micros. I'm like, it never crossed their mind to run up to AutoZone or Walmart. They didn't know where you got these special little fuses. Literally, you can probably buy in Walgreens or any store within, a half a mile of here. But they didn't know that, and they had those fuses, so they modified the PD board and took a Dremel and cut the hole out bigger and went into the board. And if you look at that, you would not tell. It's not like a hack job. They did a fantastic job of doing this. And it goes back to what Lyndon was saying earlier. Oh, that's really cool. Very innovative. I love what you were able to do there. Did a great job. Can't let you use it because rules say you can't modify electrical components. Because I don't know what they did inside of there.
So like in cases like this or like anything else where like they modify it to the point where you need like a new electrical component or something like how are you supposed to help the team with that? Like, do we have extra electrical?
We go to spare parts and get them another PD board. We go to another team and get them a PD board. They had to pull all their wiring out, put a new PD board and pull it back in there. I mean, it's non-trivial, but it's an hour, 2 hour job, whatever, depending on what the robot is. But sorry, had to make them do it. We will, I told you saying earlier, do you have this under control? Do you have a spare PD board? No, we don't have one. Come with me, let's go over to spare parts. I'll sign, I'll get you one. We'll come back. You know what you need to do to fix this. You need help. You need wire strippers. You need wire. You need whatever. We work with the teams to get through that process. But this one's a funny one because one of my rookie inspectors caught this. I didn't catch it. And oh, this PD board looks good. He goes, those fuses don't look right. And I'm looking at him going, how'd y'all do that? Well, we didn't have the right fuses, so we took a Dremel. I'm like, wow, that's a very difficult thing
So
to
this
catch.
must be the unique case, right?
This is a unique case.
Yeah,
This
this
is
is
non-standard stuff here. This is a 1 in a million.
Yeah.
But this is
Pretty
the kind of
rare.
stuff you're going to see. And cool stuff.
There's also days where it's really hard and days where it's really easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for those of you that were wanting advice on how to get through inspection easier, look right, not left.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Right. I'm like going, yeah, looks good. You did it that neat. Wire gauge looks good. Blah blah blah. I can trace my wires. That's a 2-minute wiring inspection right there.
Yeah. So
That over there is 2 hours for
I was
me.
going to say, it's like there's a lot of teams that, especially this year, complain to me. It's like, oh, inspections take too long. Now you don't have an idea as to why they take a while. There's a lot of times, like I used to do this as a student too, and a mentor, I love doing this as well, is finding ways to nest and tuck my cabling in so that it is just pristine.
I was doing that yesterday.
And it's beautiful. Like the robot comes out, it looks even better than the one on the right. From the point of view of inspections though,
You have to look
absolute
under all.
bloody nightmare.
Yeah.
Now, I get around this in 2 ways. If I'm doing it, everything's color-coded and labeled. So when the inspector comes forward and says, hey, where does that motor go? Like, you can pull out the crib sheet and take out orange motor goes here, 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 bam, that's the whole trail. So I, as the inspector, don't have to go in there and say, okay, grab this wire, pull, find out where it's going. The one on the right is super easy to inspect. The one that I just described is also quite easy as long as the team does it right. If they just nested everything and tucked everything away, and then I'm like, okay, where does that one go? It's like you can have a beautiful looking robot, but it's just a nightmare. One on the left,
Use common sense and help
Yeah.
us help you. It's basically the bottom line.
and not only that, you're helping us, and just as a high recommendation for teams, if you do it like the right, you're helping yourselves out.
Yeah.
Like if you do it
And-
any other way, you're adding more time to fixes and repairs.
And also, when the judges come around, on the right, your quality award, on the left is not considered your award, you know, that kind of stuff.
There is creativity though.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Whose was this one?
Oh,
So they used a half-inch wrench to hold their motor in because they didn't have it perfectly legal. Just make sure that that wrench is on the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The holes just didn't line up the holes that they had, so they did something else. Which is
That's creative.
Yeah, it's great. And that's one of those cases where the inspector should be going, that's so cool. Love what you did. That's creative. Good job. Let me check your bomb. Half-inch wrench. Good to go. What's this one? Okay. Hands down, without exception, the biggest problem that inspectors have are bumpers. I don't know why it is. If you look at the robot rules, there's 4, 5, 6 pages of very explicit instructions. What's legal, what's not legal, how to make a bumper, what's required, do this, don't do this. It's the largest section in the robot rules is on bumpers. And every year, bumpers are a nightmare for inspectors. It is hands down, probably 75% of our inspection issues come down to bumpers. And the reason for that is twofold. So it's not like fire went off.
you smacked your table just in the right
Yeah.
time.
It's twofold, maybe threefold. But number one, teams don't read. You know. Number two, they don't include bumpers in their design from the beginning. And number three, put it off and give it to the freshmen on week 5, 6, or we'll make it a competition. Instead of realizing when they're designing their ball collector that we have to put a bumper there, and then when I get to competition, I can't do that thing because the opening of my robot now is blocked by the bumper, or when the rules say a 6-inch side, that means not 4 inches on the kitbot chassis. That means you got to make it wider or whatever, frame perimeter. I've had a team at my event this year, very veteran team, and they just missed it, completely forgot, never thought about it in their design. Teams will take like a kitbot and put bigger wheels on it, jack that frame up here. Now they have no frame perimeter in the bumper zone to back the bumpers to, and then they decide we're going to put the bumpers on when we get there. Robot's up here like this desk, and bumpers are down here, and there's nothing to mount it onto. A team, like I said, 3,000 level team, spent all day Friday and made their last 2 matches on Saturday morning before they got their bumpers and a frame the robot built, because it was the basic structure of the robot. They essentially had to lower their entire robot and start over. So things that we see, this is perfectly fine. Nothing says your robot has to be rectangular. 1/4-inch gaps in here. This is along the frame perimeter. 8-inch spacing minimum has to be backed. This is a picture I took at my event several years ago. The rules allow for pocketing, not totally weakening the structural integrity of the bumper. It's like, can you put a little hole for a bolt head to go in, not drill a 4-inch hole in a 5-inch piece of plywood.
How do you best take these pictures?
How do you what?
Like, wouldn't you feel bad if they're like, oh, this is wrong? Let me take a picture. Would it feel like you're ridiculing?
It depends on how you sell it.
Yeah,
That's so cool. Let's take a picture of it.
I need to document this for posterity.
Yeah.
And the fail inspection, okay.
You know,
What?
if you already get the
Like
message.
raspberry.
If you're seeing the problem with this, then you're